Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for another round of Not Talking Movies with Ron and Mean Gene.
We can talk movies. I got news, but later.
Well, it's like I say that only because of the extensiveness of the subject matter and because of, the recent retirement. So it's kind of like a tongue-in-cheek spin on our original working title.
Fair enough.
When Ron was a contributing member to the tax system. And
I'm trying to get my money back out after putting it in for 44 years. That's my plan.
Right on.
You've earned it.
Right on. So it's been a couple of weeks. How is everybody? Gene, I'll start with you. How are you, young man?
Doing well. As I was just explaining to the recently retired Ron, we were working on a deck here at the homestead. That's what kind of has been occupying my time. So,
you can do that? You can.
Yeah.
That's something. This
is my sixth deck that I've built now for at my house. It's because we've owned various houses over the years. So, and this one was really old, and it's been on the honey-do list for about 2 years now. So now that I have the time, I'm doing it.
Okay, let's go back to your history of deck making, if we could.
Oh boy!
Now, in your experience, was deck number one a real? Was it like, oh, I did this wrong. Have you learned something with each one of these?
Absolutely. That's always with every home project. Back in the day when I was living on Burlingame and 36th, the guys at Woolahan Lumber, which is no longer there, but it was back in the 80s, they knew me by name because I would start a project on Saturday and I would be in there a half a dozen times to buy more stuff. So, yeah, it's a learning process on all of this stuff.
I'm very intimidated by the idea of actually doing something like that. Now, back in the day, you didn't have like YouTube videos and stuff with instant knowledge.
Exactly.
So who was teaching you, or did you just go, this looks about right?
Yeah. Well, and again, Woolahan had all these nice little pamphlets for individual little jobs. So you could thumb through that stuff. But most of it, I'm a guy. So you just do it until it looks right. And that's why, hence going back 6 times.
Well, but Gene, you're just one guy. So tell me, how have you stripped down and new foundations and 2x8s and all those big...
I'm doing it on myself. I did have help. We put in 6x6 posts because this deck is like 10 feet above the concrete patio. So I had some help putting those 6x6 posts up. Everything else I've done myself.
All the way down to the posts. I'm impressed.
Oh, yeah. Well, it started off, I was going to try to save money. So I'm just taking the decking off. I'm just going to replace that.
No,
and then the stringers were bad. So
the creep begins.
Yeah. So basically, I'm replacing the whole thing.
Wow. Now, is this the type of thing that you have to reach out to the code enforcement?
Oops.
No, let's just say it this way. No. The nice thing about living in rural America. I believe that if it's still the original footprint and you're using some of the same stuff, you're just updating the deck.
Yeah, I'd go with that one if I were you. Right on to the judge.
I think the 2 words are "I believe."
Okay. Here's the deal. I've been doing this for about a month now. So if the inspector up here has noticed it and he's good, he misses nothing, I would have been contacted already because I'm sure he would have driven by.
Okay. All right. I just like watching you squirm. That was fantastic.
No, I wasn't squirming. Because I've had the same conversation with many of my neighbors.
Oh, no. I would say if 10 being a lot of squirm, 0 being no squirm, I'm going to give you a 4.5 to a 5. Ron, how much squirm did you see?
Yeah, there was a 5, definitely.
It wasn't squirm. It was thought organization.
Okay. All right.
It was.
The main thing is it's coming out. I mean, it's out publicly now. So
yeah,
right.
No, thank you for that.
And now you just got to put the deck material down. So that's the easy part, other than the fact that it's going to be 90 degrees today as we record. Yeah.
Well, the hardest part is making sure everything is square and everything is level, and it is. And once that is, throwing the decking on is just putting screws.
Nail it, or do you use screws?
Yeah, screws into composite. We're doing all composite.
Composite.
Yeah, that stuff's great. That stuff lasts forever.
What?
That's like very expensive stuff, Gene.
Well,
I'm impressed.
Actually, there's a place in Muskegon where you can buy seconds for like a third of the price. It's incredible. I did the back deck 2 years ago at a fraction of the cost. This one as well. So, yeah.
What is seconds? What does that mean? Is that is that like when we were in college, it had sloppy seconds?
Yeah, kind of like that, or thirds or fourths or whatever.
A few stains here and there, you know.
Yeah, some of the grain is. He's got to take it there. He always takes it there, man.
Well, I meant, you know what I meant.
I know exactly. I know what you meant, and everybody else does.
I like how Ron jumps into the fray.
So yeah, it's just got a few minor flaws. You can't even tell, but they can't sell it as new. So yeah, we take it.
All right, so that's good, Ron. It's been a couple of weeks. Give me something to park on. I know there's something. Have the fish been biting? I mean, you're doing all this retired stuff. My gosh.
Yeah, the fish have been biting. The bass are very active on their beds right now. The bluegills are on and off, and they're hitting every single cast with just a tiny bit of night crawler and a bobber and 4 feet of water. Catching perch as well. The elusive walleye, I have yet to catch a keeper. I did catch a small one, and so that's good. The lake is turning the walleye population over, and that's good news. So, yeah, the fish are biting. I'm far less ambitious than Gene, although I did replace 2 outside light fixtures this morning. So, good old dealing with electricity thing. That's always tricky.
Whenever something gets done like that, I'm always like, yes. It's just quite a rush. It's an endorphin rush.
Right.
It's a dude thing. It's like you just feel like your sense of worth goes sky high. It's all I picture primitive man when he made his first spear.
Right.
He went, oh my gosh, I'm the king of the forest. You know,
Tom Hanks in Castaway, I make fire when he does that.
See, the problem here, fellas, is, finish the deck, but now here's the rest of the list. There's no joy in Mudville.
Oh, yeah.
There's like 15 other projects.
Listen, I'm working harder in retirement than I've worked in years. I just want you to know.
Yeah.
It is internal. You sit there, you look, you go, okay, now we got to go. Next project.
And now, I mean, you're dealing with Mr. Lokes. Now you're dealing with the big boss, and she's she's much more of a ball breaker.
Yes.
Oh,
the list. The list.
We're all in the same boat, guys.
She's got a big, long list. Let's remodel the kitchen.
Yeah.
Oh, sure, let's do that.
Now, you were talking about fishing. Is walleye the best to eat?
Oh.
Well, listen, they're delicious, but lake perch, fresh caught, and walleye, they're both in the same fish family. Okay, so either one of those works well and tastes great, and even early season northern pike out of my lake, I just love. It's a white meat. If you fillet it just right, you get five great pike steaks off a big northern pike.
And you know how to clean the fish, right? So you catch them and you just stick the knife in the butthole and you just right? Is that what you do?
No, you fillet them.
I don't get anywhere near that part. Okay, just taking the meat off the bone.
I don't know how to do it. I have no idea how to clean a fish. If I caught a fish and someone said clean it, I would say I don't know. I'd get soap and water. I don't know.
All he can do is go, waitress, bring me the walleye special.
Right, that's right.
How do you clean a fish?
Well, first of all, you have to euthanize it, and then you simply have a method where, depending on the fish, you're cutting around their bones. You're just taking the meat off the bone, and you're kind of, stitching around those bones and zip, 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 and you pull that off, and then you put your thumb on a little bit of skin, and then you use your fillet knife to take it right off the skin, and you're just left with a boneless little fillet of fish.
Hearing you say that, it should be no problem for me to do that.
Right.
But I don't know why, but I would feel bad because of the barbaric nature of that, even though I will go to frickin' Long John Silver's all damn day.
Yes, it's something different when you look that fish in the eye, isn't it?
I know. It would make I'd be going, oh my God.
No, tell me that's not the case.
No,
really?
it is. I can't do it. I cannot
He's
do it.
He's not a hunter either, Gene.
Yeah, then go to Long John Silver's because it's not.
Oh,
It's
man.
not for the weak of heart.
I can't handle it. It's just really rough. But anyway, I'm glad you get it. Now, the bass are you just catch them and throw them back, right? It's a
Catch
fighting
and immediate
fish, right?
release. Yeah, they're a game fish, is as we call them. They're really not good eating.
Sport.
Yeah, they're fun to catch and try to catch, and it's game. You're the fishing, they're the game. You're trying to play the game, catch the fish, and it really doesn't hurt them to just hook them through the lip and then throw them back in.
Oh, you don't know that. How would you possibly know that?
Because they don't have any nerves in their mouth area there.
Well, I mean, just find an area in your body if there's no nerves and stick a needle through it and tell me if it hurts or not. It's going to hurt like hell.
If you were a fish, you'd know the difference.
Put a needle through your fingernail and tell me if it hurts. Just the nail. It won't hurt. It's dead skin. It's the same thing.
All right.
Okay, Peter.
But what if he swallows the hook and it goes all the way down to his belly?
That's a problem.
Here comes his heart and lung. All right. Anyway, so that for me, it's been pretty much business as usual. Podcast, work, and and then weekends. So and much the same as you, I've got a list of chores. I'd like to say that there was some crazy amount of adventure going on, but it's been, frankly, all the work that's been done, it's been a real lifesaver because with all the nutty things that are going on with pandemic and the civil rights movement that is happening right now, as much as I'm always paying attention to that, it has led to kind of like almost compartmentalizing all of these very serious things that are going on in my life.
Well, which headline has got you going today, Eric?
The headline that I am most on right now is the murder of Rayshard Brooks in Atlanta. And today was the day after several days of thinking about the case that I actually said, this is what I believe. I've been reading and absorbing, and today I took a stand on what I was talking about, and I felt that he was murdered and that the cop it was not justified. He did not use reasonable force in shooting that guy. I know it's very serious, but that was a big thing today. And so now I'm not necessarily getting hate. My audience has gotten very used to me going in certain directions, and then the discussion is made, and then I do have back and forth with audience, but I'm very much in support of the prosecution of those cops.
As it should be.
Yeah.
It should be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's it. You break the law, and that should be the end of it, but it won't be.
But then the conversation, I agree with both of you. The conversation goes from there to, why are the police involved in this situation? Because they bring guns into the situation, and the next thing you know, when there are guns in the situation, somebody gets shot, and sometimes they get killed. So do you agree with that reform concept that sometimes there are situations where the police should not be called in because look what happens? No,
I don't. I think that for this case, them being there was absolutely appropriate, and they did everything by the book, and then it got off the rails when he resisted and ran away.
Right, but he wasn't. But since the cop had a gun, he felt compelled to use it just because he took the taser and was running away from him.
That's ridiculous. That's horrible. Yeah, I can't figure out why he did that, and that's what has me dumbfounded.
Right, and that's why a lot of people say, when you bring a policeman with a gun into a situation like that, here's what happens. So therefore, the police should not be bringing their guns, or the policemen should not be involved in certain situations because of this sort of outcome.
You don't know what the situation is until it
That's the other
unfolds.
side of the argument.
Well, that's the argument right there. How can you look at a situation and say, okay, no, I don't need my gun? You don't know.
Right.
You don't know how it's going to
You don't know. You don't know. Yeah. And
Fair enough.
I don't, at the end of the day, you're getting a lot of these discussions about, well, the cops shouldn't even have been there. They shouldn't have been there. Well, no, they definitely should have. You got a drunk driver right now. It needs to be taken off the street, and that's all part of the game. But at no point was deadly force necessary, in my opinion. And I even got into a discussion with people who are cops, and they go, well, I've been a cop for this long, and I know that this was appropriate. And I said, okay, if I go on my podcast and I start saying the N-word and you tell me it's wrong to do that, I'm not going to turn around. That would be like me turning around and saying, well, I've been doing a podcast for 35 years. I know what I'm doing. I don't care if any cop looks me in the face and says, you don't know what you're talking about, because I'm a cop. I know what I'm talking about. It's like, well, I'm sorry. You're wrong. You're just wrong. Yes. I don't care how long. I don't care if you invented policing. You're still wrong.
Right.
And so that's how I feel about it. And I as usual, took a very firm stance on it, and so that there is no mixed message.
Right.
Everything. These former cops. And then, did you see the guy who shot him kicked him? Then he kicked him.
I didn't see that part of the video. Thanks for sharing that, though.
That's an added thing too. It goes a long way. He shot him, and then he told the other guy, who's also charged with a less charge, he said, I got him. He said that, and then he kicked him. And the other guy stood on his shoulders. Now, I don't know if standing on the shoulders is, but the guy's mortally wounded. I'm guessing he's not going to be putting up much of a fight. And then first aid didn't begin for 2.5 minutes. Yeah. I don't know if that would have saved him. Who knows? Probably not. Right. He's mortally wounded.
Well, in a situation like that, look, the old wild west. You shot the guy in the back. He was running away from you, and then you did all those things or didn't do those things. But back to my original point, and I'll give you the fact that this situation should have been handled by the police. But don't you think that some of this conversation about reform and defunding and so forth means that sometimes the police should not be involved with their guns in a situation? There has to be some situations where the cops just don't, they don't get called. They don't show up for this sort of thing.
So that would mean that would mean that if he was, so let's just say that the same scenario, you have a drunk asleep in the drive-thru, someone wants him, calls on him, they just say, oh, go on. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, there's other issues, like particularly when you're dealing with mental health issues. Sometimes maybe there's a domestic issue. I've heard all kinds of different scenarios where, okay, you call 911, the 911 operator doesn't put you in touch with the police. They put you in touch with a qualified mental health worker who's trained to understand the situation, and if they have to actually get to a location, they consider it safe enough for them to go to. It's all of those sorts of non-life-threatening type of situations that maybe the police are not the right people to handle this sort of a complaint or a call. That's all.
Well, can you imagine if that were in play, and then let's say someone shows up there, wakes him up, drives him home, and then all of his information is there, and then he's charged when he gets home?
But who do you call? How do you do that? You gotta go get his phone.
Well, that would have required an entire infrastructure building to facilitate what Ron was suggesting.
There's some conversation to that end that there might be reassigning certain type of calls to someone other than the policeman. And again, it gets to be a very gray and tough situation when you don't know if this guy sleeping in his car has a gun under his chair, under his seat.
So the first time something like this happens and the police aren't called and the drunk wakes up and drives away and hits somebody and kills them, the police are going to they're going to be held responsible for not taking this guy off. And you don't know what individual situations are going to be.
Yeah.
So you can't make a decision beforehand. You've got to pretend they're all going to be bad, and then take it from there.
But again, Gene, the conversations are going on right now that there are some situations, and I'm not talking about drunk drivers. Absolutely.
Any situation. And
Yep.
if you're calling 911, there's usually an emergency. How do you determine whether it's a real emergency or not when somebody's screaming into the phone that, you know, what's going on? It's a very slippery slope, man. And it's, once you go down it, it's.
Well, I tell you what, they got to have some serious powwows and get to the bottom of this, because this is in the time that I've been on this earth, I've never seen anything with such a it's not going away. It must be dealt with, and lip service is going to do nothing. And these people who are very, very upset, well, I say these people, any people who are upset aren't going to take that type of, there's going to need to be some type of furthering to make this happen.
Like, isn't Minneapolis looking at seriously changing how they operate their police force? I thought I saw that headline.
Yeah,
so.
I did see that.
How about just put him in prison? If he's guilty, put him in prison. I mean,
Well, yeah,
it's
put him in
tough
prison.
to do.
Don't shoot the guy in the back, okay? Yeah, don't use deadly force.
People do that. People, mistakes happen. You can't stop that. That's what the judicial system is for. If you break the law, you go to prison. That should be the same for cops as it is for regular people. I mean, you're not going to legislate that out of society. It's not going to happen.
All right, gentlemen, on a culturally entertainment level, has anything been consuming you that has been burning into your brain that you would like to discuss now?
Yes. Ron, you go first, because mine's going to take the rest of the show.
Okay.
That's right.
Very good. I know exactly what this is.
You know where I'm going. It's been a month.
I do. Uh-huh.
Go ahead.
Well,
Ron.
a couple of quick entertainment headlines, because everybody should know that I'm tied to the movie theater business for a career, and now in my retirement, sort of watching what's going on. Very slowly now, things are moving back and moving forward more slowly than I had anticipated, from the standpoint of movie theaters opening up and new big movies being released. And the industry was sort of looking at Christopher Nolan's movie Tenet, July 17, as the first big blockbuster of this post-quarantine era here. And now that movie has moved off that date from July 17 actually to July 31st. So not too far, but so the reopening of theaters is going more slowly than I thought it would. Some theaters may open at the end of June. Some of them might be around early July. It's looking more like mid-July now for sort of a return of movie theaters. We're still waiting for Michigan's governor to say it's safe, and New York is a big market and they still are closed. California opened at 25% capacity, and so that's a challenge for these big expensive movies to make their money back. So those things are moving more slowly than I anticipated. So it's been interesting to see some of the big releases moving at this point.
There was a film that was just immediately sent to streaming. It's called The King of Staten Island, with Bill Burr. Pete Davidson is in that. Looks very, very good. And I'm sure that was a film that they had wanted to put out in theaters, and they had to make the transition over to streaming.
Yeah, and I don't know if that one always was a Netflix title or not. Spike Lee's new movie was a Netflix, always was going to be a Netflix movie. Obviously, those guys have been financing big movies, big directors, and Netflix content's pretty packed right now. And yes, there have been features that went direct to on demand that were going to theaters. So far, most of them, the big ones, like I mentioned, Tenet, still planned for theaters. Mulan from Disney, that'll be the first one now on July 24. Wonder Woman was set for August, is now moved back to October 2. So dates are still shuffling. Opening up of theaters is going very, very slowly. Although the drive-ins are doing great business, by the way. If you want to,
good.
Yeah, the Getty Drive-In in Muskegon, I know, is opening up with double features this weekend as well. They were doing single features, and so the drive-in business is cooking.
Now we've had delayed openings for films that were already done. So I mean that is what we have. But now, since all of this time has passed where they also haven't been making movies, there's going to come a time in the future when they're going to be like scrambling to come up with new releases, I'm guessing, right?
Well, you know what? That's the production has picked up again now, and you may be very well right, but there was so much product that was scheduled for March, April, and May and June that it's going to fill in that gap for the most part between now and the end of 2021 or early 2022. So I don't think it's going to be a huge challenge to fill the pipeline. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's interesting,
All right.
and I don't know if the movie industry has adopted this, but I was reading the other day about the television industry and how they're going to start filming, but they're not doing any close-up scenes, no kissing scenes. They're going to do, everybody's got to be 6 feet apart, so they have to do all these shot locations differently. And if there is a scene where they're together, it has to be, you know, like 10 seconds, and that's all, and then they have to separate again. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of very weird-looking TV in the near future when these things start coming out. These sitcoms.
That's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah. You know, it'll be interesting for the DPs to figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to get their stuff shot.
But you're right. When you look at television now, or even movies, you know, depending on, you know, if it's Star Wars, who cares, right? But if they're trying to project real life, you see all these crowd scenes now, and you go, wow, no, you can't do that. You know, it's like, so it's all going to look a lot different if you're trying to do reality sort of television.
Right.
Right on. Gene, please ask the $1 million question that we've been dying to get to the bottom of, because I will tell you everything you need to know.
Okay, and I haven't tried one of these, but I watched you make the Big Mac Chaffle, and it looked absolutely disgusting. And yet you both seem to enjoy it. You and your lovely wife are both in the kitchen. It looked like a real cooking show. I was
sure.
Yeah, it was good.
Did you see the dog pop in like, hey, I want to try some?
Give me some. Well, the dog was there as a secondary person.
Yeah.
Should it have been bad, it was going right to them.
Okay.
Explain how you got to that and why.
Okay. So I had recently started this diet bet, trying to lose 4% of my weight in 4 weeks. And one of the ways whenever I do decide that I'm going to lose some weight, I drop as much carbohydrate as I can out.
Yeah.
Okay. So the trouble with that is, though, you run out of interesting things to eat unless you really kind of start to work at it. So I wanted Dinah said, what about these things called chaffles? I go, what is that? She says, it's a waffle made out of cheese and there's like no carbohydrate. I go, well, that sounds terrible. What are the ingredients? So she shows me. I go, this is gonna be and seriously, it was so bad. You blend all these ingredients up and you put in this little waffle maker, and it's like, well, there's no way that this is actually going to be a tasty thing. And then you taste it and you go, how did this happen? This is still pretty good. So then, so we've been eating these things, chaffles, which is a cheese waffle, like I said, and various ingredients for various recipes. And so there's 1,000,001 recipes online. You can find those, but we saw this one for a Big Mac Chaffle. Okay, so you have to make the chaffle. The ingredients for the actual chaffle, which is your bun, one large egg, 1/2 cup finely shredded mozzarella, and 1/4 teaspoon of garlic salt. You blend all that up, or you whisk it together, and then you pour it into this little tiny dash waffle maker. They're really cute. And then so you make them. They're perfect. They're like this big around. And then that's your bun. And then for the cheeseburgers, 1/3 pound of ground beef, 1/2 teaspoon of garlic salt. Mix all that together. And then you make your I have another dash fryer to make just the burger. We made the burger. Two all beef patties.
Special sauce, lettuce, cheese.
Special sauce. Yeah. That special sauce, 2 teaspoons mayonnaise, 1 teaspoon ketchup, 1 teaspoon dill pickle relish, splash of vinegar for taste. You whisk that up. Looks just like the freaking McDonald's sauce. And then you assemble. You've got your shredded lettuce. You've got your dill pickles, your minced onion. Make sure to mince them up really fine. You don't want too much onion flavor in this, Gene. Chaffle, put on some of the special sauce. you got the cheese on the burger. It's all melted on there. And then you put the 2 all beef patties on, and then lettuce and onion, and then, oh my gosh, put your chaffle on top of it. And you thought, well, there's no way this is going to taste good. And these chaffles have blown my mind and won me over every time. And that's just really, really good. It's delicious.
So it's cheese, burger, cheese, burger, cheese, with condiments in the middle there.
Well, you can stack it however you want.
Well, that's how a Big Mac is.
Yeah. However the Big Mac is stacked, that's how you stack it.
Well, you got the 2 cheese chaffles, one on top, one on bottom, one in the middle. You got to have one in the middle. Did you put one in the middle?
I didn't do that.
Oh, see, that's where it can. Then it's not a Big Mac.
No,
got to have that middle bun.
Well, but you know what? Here's the thing. When you're fighting for your calorie life and you're trying to avoid carbohydrate and you taste something that's actually really good and decadent, you feel like you're breaking all these rules, but you're not. Oh, what a winner. Now, Ron.
Is cheese is not a carb? There's no
protein.
Really low fat protein.
Dairy carb?
Fat, very low carb. Enough that keeps it in the green zone. If you're trying to avoid carbohydrate, but fat and protein is good, this is still good.
Well, you got your carbs in the ketchup. You got your carbs. That's where you.
I use half sugar ketchup.
Oh, okay.
Half sugar.
You can buy that.
Sugar.
You can buy that.
I'm sure you can.
This is all good, man. I'm telling you. Now, Ron over here, Mr. Lean and Mean, and to some extent, Gene, you guys have these unbelievable, girlish, awesome figures.
Nice.
You guys don't have to worry about that.
We do.
Listen, I've learned the carb versus protein approach to living, and I'm pretty good at it. To the point where if I eat a half a bagel, which I do most days, I scoop out the insides of the bagel, and then that's where I can put my peanut butter and jelly.
Oh.
So just get rid of, just kind of use a little tool to scoop it out. Just kind of turns into a bagel boat. Right?
Yeah. I didn't even know that. That's a great idea.
So what I would like you to do, Eric, because a lot of people, they should see this video. You need to do another link to it today or whenever you can, back to that original one where you guys were making the chaffle.
Yeah.
So
that's what it looks like right there.
Whoa.
It does actually look like a waffle, but it's cheese.
Yeah.
So, have you
I got to get myself a Dash waffle maker. I think that sounds awesome.
You could do it in a regular waffle maker and then
Sure.
just cut them out the squares,
Good.
but it doesn't look like a Big Mac. Have you chaffled anything else?
I like the peanut butter chaffle and the blueberry chaffle. The blueberry chaffle is my favorite.
With cheese or egg? Do you do egg or cheese?
Yeah, you do both. Like for the blueberry chaffle, typically 2 eggs, almond flour, maybe some baking powder in that, maybe some cinnamon, and then blueberries, and then and mozzarella cheese, and then when you blend it all together, it looks like hot puke. It's terrible looking, and then you put it in you go alakazam, alakazoom, and then it comes out a waffle. It's absolutely fantastic.
Try cream cheese with the blueberry one next time.
Yeah, you can do that. I've seen some recipes with cream cheese. There's thousands of these recipes.
All right.
So you can do this for breakfast or lunch or dinner, depending on how you. Yeah. Wow.
Typically we have them for breakfast.
Mm-hmm.
But
are you a smoothie or protein shake guy too? Is that part of your diet?
Not right now, but it probably should be. The smoothie might be a little bit sugar intensive, but I'm sure there's ways to find some that don't.
Yeah, I use almond milk and almond silk, almond yogurt, and then use some protein powder, put a banana in there or blueberries, or sometimes I put spinach in it. So that's all no sugar added at that point.
Do you remember when we were young and we could literally eat piles of garbage?
Yes.
I mean, what?
Yes.
This is so hard.
Yes.
I know. My guilty pleasure is every once in a while I buy a box of Frosted Flakes. I used to eat a whole box for breakfast, man.
I could sit here and talk for hours about that. I love talking about food. It's just the greatest.
You either eat to live or live to eat, and I
Oh,
think we
but
all live to eat.
you gotta cut back on the sugar, man. But as a
Oh.
kid, yeah, it just amazes me how much sugar I consumed.
My mother would never buy sugar cereal and never buy brand name cereal. It would just you get a white box with a red stripe and it says flakes. And I hated it.
You
And
couldn't add to your sugar.
oh yeah, we would, but it's still just what all the other kids are like eating sugar cereal and awesome stuff. And then the only time she'd really let us have something that was even remotely like it would be like Kicks or Life or something. I'm like, it's just not right, Ma.
Yeah,
But
you set that out. Even the animals won't eat that if you set it out for them. It's like
King Vitamin,
shredded
Oh,
wheat.
God, King Vitamin.
I'm like, Mom, this sucks so bad. King Vitamin, and he was like, he had the crown. He looked like a pedo on the box. He's like,
Oh,
King Vitamin. Oh my God, I remember that stuff.
You remember this.
I remember that. That was nasty. That was nasty.
Boys,
thank you.
I'm out of gas.
Thank you for the Big Mac Chaffle.
Listen, I have one parting shot here because I can't quite figure out the news this week about SpongeBob SquarePants. Is SpongeBob gay? I mean, he came out this week on the LGBTQ thing.
He did?
He did. There was like, we got it. Okay, next time we'll have a little discussion. Okay. Look up.
Well, yeah, I will look it up.
He has a new movie coming out in July, and now he's apparently there's some question about his sexual preference, which hey, everything's fine under the sea, above the sea. I don't, whatever.
That's crazy. That would add a whole new bit of visual imagery to that part in the theme when he plays the flute.
Let's wait. Save it for next time. I can't.
Don't save it. Don't save that. Don't.
All right. Very good. I'll look into that. We'll check back. Okay, boys. Well, happy Father's Day.
Happy Father's Day.
Yes,
you guys enjoy.
Indeed,
we dads. Will. All right, Rod. All right, Gene. You guys have a good one.
See you later.
Thank you. Send me the link.